Hello and welcome to October 1st with the Stitching Owl. You have found a channel all about cross stitch and everything related to that. I'm so glad that you chose me to spend a moment with. I know there are so many options available and that there are so many that have more experience in their presentations than I do. Thank you to those people who have found the subscribe button. I really appreciate knowing that there are some of you who have wanted to know when I put up my next video and that you are enjoying my content. Please feel free to leave a comment. I enjoy responding to these and am encouraged so much by so many of these comments. If I could say thank you in particular to the Hibernation Stitcher, who has, in a couple of her conversations with me, been very encouraging to my style and my content. This means so much to me. In the past week and a bit, I have sent out 2 smiles. The first smile went to Janet Jabber, who is a Flosstuber with lots of energy and joy in the stitching. She always makes me smile as she shows what she has stitched, and her true joy in her grandchild is definitely evident. The other smile that I sent out was to Nancy, the Disorderly Stitcher, who has kept me company on many a sleepless night. I really understand the challenges that she goes through as a teacher, although I must say that I teach in the private sector because I found that after 2 years of teaching 30 students at the same time that I couldn't handle the stress level of that. So I truly respect what she has dedicated her life to. At this moment, she's starting to have a few problems with her knees and is concerned that she might need an operation in the future. So I hope that everybody will keep her in their thoughts and prayers. And I do hope she enjoys the smile that I sent to her. One of the goals that I have is to send a smile to every state and province in North America. So I'm hoping that some of you will use the Gmail address below and let me know your address so I can send you a smile as well. They're simple cards with an ornament. As you know, I like to make at least 4 ornaments a month, and I truly love to share them with people who understand the joy of stitching that has gone into each one of those little projects. Let's talk for a moment about other Flosstubers. One of the Flosstubers that I continue to enjoy wholeheartedly is Contented Needleworker Kim. I know I've mentioned her before, but what happened in the last video that she made that particularly reached through the screen to me was her explaining how she adjusts patterns to make them her own. It isn't that she doesn't like what the designer has done. She loves it, but she is feeling comfortable with altering colors to her preferred color scheme for her house or adding and subtracting a motif here and there. As someone who does this regularly herself in her quilting and her stitching, hearing her embrace this whole idea really helped me feel a sense of companionship through the screen. Even though it's quite possible I will never meet her in person, I do feel like she is a true friend. A new to me Flosstuber is the Bohemian Stitcher. Now, if you want to watch somebody who is enthusiasm in italics, bold, capital letters, this is your girl. She is an Aussie stitcher who has many, many projects on the go that actually cover quite a broad range of styles, so everybody will find something they like. she has also opened my eyes to the fun and games that people can have on Facebook. It isn't that I didn't know that these were out there. I have known of Facebook references from many, many Flosstubers, but the way she spoke about her interactions through these games and knowing that she was so many hours different than her friends in Britain, but that she could wake up and race to her computer to see what was happening in the game has made me think I just might sign up for Facebook. It hasn't been something we've embraced much in my house, but I think if I did it just for the stitching friendships, I would be comfortable. My children have actually thanked me for not putting their photos on Facebook and Instagram. So I'm going to continue to respect their privacy. Well, let's talk stitching now. So I usually start with finishes, and I am excited. It didn't take too much longer after our last time together for my flamingo stocking to be finished in the stitching. Now, I am not going to be doing the final finish of making it into a stocking until after I've visited Jacobpalooza, but I'm happy to show you. There we go. That's my whole sunny stocking with the mix of winter and the Caribbean all into the same stocking. And delightfully, there's some material over here that I can use for, yes, more ornaments. So I am absolutely thrilled that the whip that I've been showing for the entire first couple of months is now finished, and that I can put it in the ready to fully finish pile. So that was 14 count. I did have it on Stormy Night Ada, but because it's full coverage, it doesn't really matter what I put it on. One caveat that I just wanted to say about this particular pattern: there are no overlaps. It's a 9-page pattern, and I will put the designer below. Right at the moment, the name escapes my mind, but there's no overlaps between all of the 9 pages. So you really have to line things up carefully to make sure that you're not about to make an error that you might have to get the frogging out. So that's the one thing that I found a little bit tricky, but I managed, and it's not going to stop me from doing yet another of those stockings. The seal, that baby seal stocking looks so cute that I think I'm going to do it. Now, what else did I do? Well, with regards to fully finish, you know that I have been playing around with some of the Biscornu patterns from Jacob Modern Folk Embroidery. So I've made some Biscornu, but I'm not necessarily going to make Biscornu out of each one of these. I've got other ideas. This week, further fully finishing didn't happen with these, but I did get 2 of these finished on 32 count vintage rose Lugana. So the purple one is just the center of one of his patterns, but this is the whole Biscornu. I'm enjoying my time with sulky threads, where you only use 1 strand in 32 and you get marvelous coverage. Let me show you. That is 1 thread. the coverage is excellent. Now, one of the conversations I had with another floss tuber was that the sulky thread is what I would call a round thread, whereas many of the other things that we stitch with are flat. So I don't know that you'd be able to actually mix together sulky with other kinds of threads in the same way that we can take so many, like we can even mix silk and cotton together. It works, but I'm not sure that sulky would work unless you were trying to highlight something and have it raised in combination with something else that was more flatter. It might give dimension to that, but I am really enjoying this, and I'm looking forward to finding ways to fully finish this. That isn't necessarily a Biscornu. And I think that's all of my finishes, which puts us to my fully finishes. And as you know, I enjoy doing this. So here we go. Last time, I had one little element out of the Tiny Town, Halloween Tiny Town, that I had picked out and had partially finished. Now I have fully finished this Halloween, and I've just got a little bit of orange on the back to match the orange pumpkins and Boo. So this is just a tiny ornament, and that is Heart and Hand. So I'm sure you're wondering, did I actually get the drum made? And yes, I did. So I'm going to reach. So this is my Tiny Town drum. It looks like velvet, but it's actually just a beautiful piece of cotton that I had, that it's on top and bottom. And then I went into a bit of a beading frenzy, and I decided that instead of putting rickrack or other lace or anything around here, that I was going to bead around the top, make it look a little bit like a Halloween cake. So I had fun doing that, and this particular thing, because these are strands of beads and I'm only anchoring at the orange top and bottom, it didn't take me long to do that. And indeed, if you look at my tree, I actually used beads instead of stitches on that tree. So just looking at one of my bats, yes, he had a piece of fluff on him. So that's my second Tiny Town done. I do like making those drums, and I will say to you, they're not as hard as they look. Vanna Pfeiffer has an absolutely wonderful tutorial about how to do it, and Helen D has recently put up another one as well. So there's lots of help out there for you to fully finish your Tiny Towns. Now, what else did I do for fully finishes? Well, I had talked to you last time about my Waxing Moon Designs Autumn Barn Trio. And indeed, I have all three finished stitching and fully finished. This is the blue barn with the geese flying into somewhat of a setting sun. As a quilter, I liked that there was quilt blocks on the bottom and a barn quilt above the door. This was the newest one, the gray barn. It had a completely different and individualized barn square. I love the autumn colors and the pumpkins. And then the last one was the red barn that you saw before, which announces autumn has arrived. So this barn trio from Waxing Moon Designs, I'm just going to hold them up. They are a lot of fun. These have been stitched on 22 count ivory hardanger, and that was my effort to make them a little bit smaller to be ornament size. I will say that as ornaments go, they take more stitching than some of the other ones that you've seen from me. These barns are 100% solid, so you're not going to get one of these done in a sitting, but it is well worth doing it over 3 or 4 days to get the whole ornament stitched. I'm going to show you a pattern by Tiny Modernist. So this is the Halloween Ouija board. On this one, I have not done the whole thing. What I did was I took one of these, and yes, you guessed it, I made an ornament out of it. So that black crow is now this ornament, and you can see that I continued to go beading crazy. When I sewed it to the back, I put rows of beads. There's actually 3 colors of beads: purple, there's a gunmetal, and then a black in between, and I went all the way around. Now this is not hard. It is a really neat effect, but it takes time. I will say that this tiny ornament took 2 hours to bead. So you have to be a little bit patient when you're doing the beading, but I think it's worth it. I'm going to do it again. So this is Tiny Modernist. This was stitched on pewter 25 count Lugana, and all of this is 1 strand of, yes, you guessed it, DMC 310. And I just grabbed an end piece of a random thread for my rest in peace there. I don't know what it was just available. Sometimes you just have a few left over and you don't wrap them back into their proper place, but they're too big to throw out, so I save those for just those moments. Now, are my fully finishes done? Not quite. Now, that is the end of my ornaments for this period of time, and that means that I, in the month of September, completed 7 more ornaments, and my total for 2023 is now 62 ornaments. So I'm happy to say I have more ornaments done than how old I am, which was my one of my goals for this year. So I have achieved that, but I'm not going to stop because I just love making ornaments. My other fully finish is that I've located a stitch from past, I think it was last year, that I grabbed a freebie off of the Fat Quarter Shop, and I finished it on just, I think this is a neutral 14 count Aida that I just got from Amazon. It's one of those really stiff Aidas. So for me, I found it a little tricky with it being stiff to get good corners. The softer material is easier to fully finish for me, but this is really cute. I was experimenting with different variegated threads in here, so that was a lot of fun. And I have magnets on the back so that it can go on the fridge, or actually my filing cabinets in my studio can now have a Halloween ornament on it. But it's very cute, and I do believe that it might still be available free. Now I think I'm done with my fully finishes. Yes, okay. So that brings us to whips, works in progress. As you know, I got my stocking done. And that was usually the only WIP I was showing you in the past weeks because I was constantly finishing everything. Well, believe it or not, this week I have 3 WIPs to show you. I was doing a little bit of searching in my craft room. I found a bag that I had forgotten about and discovered a whole bunch of DMC, and luckily one of the bags had exactly the number I needed for one of my projects, which was why I was looking. But I discovered I had a WIP that I had completely forgotten about. This is unusual for me because I tend to want to start something, work it through, and finish it. Being a floss tuber and enjoying watching other people have multiple patterns on the go, I'm starting to not be quite as monogamous. The pattern that I found was a hands-on design, Oh Canada, that I remember starting back on Canada Day, July 1st, at a Zoom session with Stitching by the Shore, Laura. And people were amazed that, again, because I want this to be ornament size, I'm doing it on 20 count. Now, the thing is, I'm not doing it on something that is super black. I choose charcoal 20 count Aida so that it isn't quite as difficult for me to see. I'm just going to put it up like this. And right at the moment, when I found it, I had the flags in and Canada, and that's it. I found this on Thursday. So in the last couple of days, I got 2 more rows done, which means that in this pattern, I now have this swag to put on top, and then I should be able to finish this before our next session together. So I was happy to find that. I'm not sure how, I must have slid it into that bag, and when I was putting things away, didn't realize I'd put away a project that was in motion. So unusual for me, but it's definitely going to be ready for next Canada Day well ahead of time. Now, what else do I have for a WIP? Well, let me first show you a past finish. In June, my husband ran the half marathon at Pelee Island, which has a mix of Americans and Canadians running around the island. It was a very hot day, and he did very well. I always enjoy just sitting, the finish line is Pelee Island Winery, and so I sit on their veranda. This time I started this and stitched, yes, the swans. Cottage Garden Sampling, Year in the Woods. I was stitching this, and the woman next to me peeked over and said, "Oh, may I show you something?" And I said, "Of course, do you stitch?" She said, "No, I don't stitch, but I love to knit." And I've got a picture of my most proud finish. And she showed me a knitted shawl that was absolutely exquisite. You know, she wears it to special functions and looks divine in it. So I found it was a lot of fun that my stitching was sort of an icebreaker because I knew nobody there. But we were able to chatter about many things, and the stitching brought us together. So that was the first one of A Year in the Woods. I have this past week on Wednesday, I started the fox. Now this one is one that many people have finished, different sizes on different counts and different backgrounds. It was number 1 in the series, and people jumped on the bandwagon. They were so thrilled with this. So I have purchased a number of these patterns, I'm not sure if I'll do all 12 or 9 or 10, possibly 10. I haven't quite decided. I'm not going to work on fully finishing them until I have all of the stitching done. I have a couple of ideas that are running around in my head for options, and so I need to let that settle, and then I would need to finish them together. So this is how far I have the fox. Okay. Let me try this again. I was wondering why things looked flecked. Here is the right side to my swans. Good grief, Karen. It looks much better when it's the right side, doesn't it? And this is how far I got the fox. When I rolled up my piece of material, I rolled it in a different way than I thought I had. So I don't find that these particular stitches take a long time to do. My swans took 3 weeks to complete, but at that point I was 100% monogamous and only doing the swans. So the fox might take me longer, I'm not sure. Right now I'm just trying to dedicate 30 minutes to 45 minutes to it a day, and we'll see where that goes. It might be a whip next time again. I'd love it if it was a finish, but I'm not thinking that's going to happen. And the reason for that is my third whip, my BAP, my big awesome project. So this stained glass owl by Shirova Designs, they are found on Etsy, is the pattern that I chose. So I did initially choose it for 2 reasons, and the first reason is obvious. I'm the stitching owl. But the second reason that I chose it is I thought that there probably was going to be areas that were not just confetti, that I'd be able to have some solid stitching so it wouldn't take quite as long as some of the full coverage large pieces take. So in here, okay, so you can see that I roll up my work as I go to prevent quite as many creases just from being difficult to come out. Now, my personal goal is to get at least 100 stitches in every day. I went beyond that because I would start stitching, and even if I had to have 4 or 5 colors going for that particular stretch, I got so into it. This is in the last 15 days. So I started this on the 16th of September. So I've done 15 days. I've done about 2 hours each night. Yes, I'm stitching this in the middle of the night on this. And in that period of time, I got 4,600 stitches in. So I already have, hang on, let's do this, that much in. So right here, I started in the top right. The reason that I did that, and I know that's different than a lot of people, but I hold my material with my left hand, and I didn't want to have stitching exposed to what could be possible oils in my hand. Yes, I wash my hands before I stitch, but even then, just human beings have natural oils in their hands, although my skin's quite dry, so maybe not as much as some. But so I started in the top right hand corner, and in that way I grid as I go. So I've got some gridding done there and some gridding done there. There are times that I can put in like 200 stitches of black in one night, but sometimes those black spots actually have a lot of other colors in it too that won't come to light until you look up really close. So as you know, because I am quite the product stitcher, when I watch other floss tubes, I was watching the Curious Crafters, and they were discussing this whole idea of a BAP. And I heard them say, oh, this is probably a 5-year project. And I went, 5 years? Oh my, I don't want to take 5 years on the same project. And it's not that, like, yes, everybody has to find their own rhythm. But for me, I don't want to take 5 years for that project. So I am, yes, you guessed it. This is 20 count, and that's that charcoal Ada again. And I know a lot of you are going to be amazed, but when there was so much black, and I'm only using a single strand of DMC, I didn't want any light fabric to show through. So I find that the lighter color is actually showing up very well on the black. So that's why I do it. And yes, I can indeed stitch on charcoal in the middle of the night. Now I have chosen the 400 by 400 design. Shirova provides you with 4 options a lot of the times, and I know I looked at another one where they provided more than that. So they offered 300 by 300, 400 by 400, 500 by 500, and 600 by 600 for this design. Now, yes, you're right. If it was 300, there was fewer different DMC colors, and as you got to the higher numbers, you ended up with more and more DMC colors. So 400 by 400 means there's 160,000 stitches in this particular project. That isn't daunting to me. It's fine. But I was like, what if I did some math? So if I wanted to complete this in 1 year, I would need to do 3,077 stitches every week. I did not think that that was going to be possible. Yeah, on a continuous basis. I just didn't think that that was going to be possible. I want to be able to stitch many things. So I did the math for 18 months, and I saw that it was 2,052 stitches per week. That is still optimistic, but I want to try for it. So if I do that, it would mean that I would be finishing it in March of 2025. I know nobody else is really going to actually look at the math of this like this, but it's just the way my brain works. I'm a music theorician, so everything seems to be quantified. So that is my basic goal here. And one of the advantages of starting in the top right corner, I already have a page finish because the very right side is only one set of 10. So there's about 1,100, almost 1,100 stitches on this. So you can see I'm not using Pattern Keeper. I'm beginning to realize why people do it, because I do have to actually look at a blow up in my iPad to see what some of the different symbols truly are, especially in the middle of the night, and that would be easier in Pattern Keeper. But I do not have 2 tablets, and I am kept company by watching Flosstube on my tablet. So I just don't have a tablet available to be using for Pattern Keeper. So until that changes, I am doing the dinosaur method. I'm keeping track of what my colors are, for that particular page on the page and then coloring it out. So the first 15-day period, I used a blue pen to color it out. So I'm just going to change the color as I go so that I can see the patterns through the weeks and count my stitches that way to share with you how things are going. So I'm super excited. No, it's not going to be something I can finish in 1 or 2 weeks at all. Not at all. But I can see progress already. And the colors are so vivid that I'm just like, this is so much fun. Now, since we last met, I sent 2 trading cards to Laura, Stitching by the Shore, for her October 1 due date. She had a theme of autumn, and we were to send in, one trading card was fine. I decided to finish 2, but I made a cardinal mistake. I sealed the envelope, took it to the post office, and then thought, I did not take any pictures. So I have no pictures to show you. I am hoping that when Laura does the final collect, and I think she's going to do a special Flosstube where she shows the different cards that have come in. I'm hoping I'll be able to say which ones were mine, but I apologize, I don't have them to show you. These things happen. Did I do anything else in the past 15 days? Well, I did a little bit of sewing. I wanted to have more project bags, but I didn't want to purchase others because I have enough quilting material here to start a small store. It doesn't make sense for me to purchase somebody else's if I should do it myself. So I have been playing around. Now this particular one, it's actually full of future fun. What I did was I found in the top of my closet 4 or 5 past stitches from like before the year 2000. And they're not necessarily my aesthetic now, but they might as well be used. So I thought, let's put it on the front of a project bag, do a little bit of quilting, free motion, and then in that way it's been used. I cannot tell you what the design is or who the designer was because it was that long ago. I can look at this and say it was 14 count and it looks like it was ivory Aida because previous to 2000 I was either on ivory or white Aida 14 count. I didn't know anything else and I'm not sure that it was as readily available anyway. So that was the first project bag. Now, I wanted to make a project bag that I could make with handles so that I could put things in it for my Jacob Palooza projects. It just makes easier going around if I've got handles on it. But I did not have a pattern, so I decided that I was just going to grab some material that I can't remember why I purchased. And this is what I came up with. Yes, it's got stripes. I think my mother looked at that and said, oh, those stripes will make great binding. And then I later discovered that she meant for me to make bias binding, and that's not something I enjoy doing. I think that's why I got it. So I have handles that I have put into the top by putting an extra seam in here. And now this is a fairly large bag. So now I've got something that I can carry with me a few projects to Jacob Palooza and hopefully leave enough space that I can do some purchasing. You're going to find that I don't have much future fun today because I'm saving my money for my retreat. I'm weekend 2. And I'm looking forward to meeting a couple of Flosstubers. I do watch the Sunshine Stitchers, and Sheila is going to weekend 2. So I'm going to have a fangirl moment, I'm sure. Yeah, I will. Now, this morning before I joined all of my projects together to make this video, I made another project bag. Now, this is my first go at vinyl. And I followed, for the most part, the instructions by Unfinished Stitches. And in this one, what she does is she makes the back bigger than the front, and then it becomes a self-binding. I'm thinking I probably won't do the self-binding the next time because I am so used to doing binding the regular way that I have a knack for it that I don't have for this. But this is, and again, it's big, and the reasons it's big is I decided I was going to use past practice blocks from my quilting projects for the back. And I did this and I was like, oh my goodness, those are going to be very large blocks. I don't usually make my blocks that large when I'm quilting. So I only made one, and then I wasn't sure what to do with it. So this is the back of this. But I now realize why people put something pretty here, because you can see through. Well, you can see through until you put your projects in there. Making this with the clear vinyl, it really was not as difficult as I thought, and I really am appreciative of the video by Unfinished Stitches that allowed me to say, yes, I can do this. I will say I'm glad that I did not get my clear vinyl on Amazon. It was much cheaper to purchase a yard of it at Fabricland in Canada. Is possibly a little bit like your Joann's, but it's just fabric. It's not other crafting much. And so I was able to get a very large yard, I'm trying to think, 45 inches wide for like $14.50. So that's a lot of these project bags. And this particular material is just the leftover from a recent quilt that I was working on for somebody. So I've been making project bags. Okay. When it comes to future fun, the only purchase I really made in the last 15 days was, yes, you guessed it, I'm sure you knew I was going to buy the Ornaments issue. It's just going to be something I do, and I will go back to past Ornaments issues to have fun making more, or in some cases, doing an ornament more than once. Because I give these away, I don't end up with a lot at my own home, and so I've got a great excuse to do the ones that are fun more than once. So this is an absolutely wonderful resource, more than 70 patterns, and there's a few of the patterns that are more of a full size, but again, Karen can take out little components to make ornaments. So I do have from a past purchase the Halloween ornaments. So when it comes to future plans, my plan before I see you again halfway through October is to do 1 or 2 ornaments out of the Halloween cross stitch ornaments. I'm telling myself not to start on Christmas until I've used my Halloween Ornaments magazine. And I got a kind of neat idea for something that I could do with the pumpkin faces they have. So let's see whether that gets done for next time. I do have my BAP that I want to get at least 2,000 stitches in over the next 15 days. And if I go by what my math is, I'll be aiming for 4,000 stitches. We'll see if it happens because I've got Jacob Palooza in here. And I am really trying to use some of my time to sew a few favors for my future friends at my table. So I might not have quite as much stitching time as I have had in the end of September. I do want to continue with the Fox by Country Cottage Samplings, Cottage Garden Samplings. I don't know if I'll get it done or not. It depends. And the other thing that I want to do is hopefully get myself signed up for the Jingle Ball. I know you all know about the Jingle Ball. If you don't, go on to thejingleball.net and look up this virtual retreat opportunity. The sign up is October 13th, starting at 7 o'clock at night, which will be after I have just put in a full day and should still be at Jacob Palooza. So I'm hoping maybe I can set my watch and then everybody at my table will want to sign up at the same time using our cell phones. Not sure, but I certainly would like to be able to do that this year. I knew that I had missed out last year, but it just wasn't meant to be. I needed to spend that weekend with my mother, so it didn't happen. So that's part of my future plans as well. And I think I have said it all. Yes, my table is cluttered and my floor is full too. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate these moments together. And as we all make something, I hope you now go and make yourself happy.